All right, welcome you as you're all coming in, sitting down, filing into the auditorium. The thousands and thousands of you that we wait for to sign on, we may have to continue to wait for. However, the 20 or 25 that we have here today, we look forward to a wonderful day. Thank you for coming to this week's edition of our bi-weekly What's Happening at Gentian, where we try to keep you informed of what's on our minds and things that you may want to pay attention to. Also the things you shouldn't pay attention to because we're taking care of them for you. So today I always like to start with going big. Gratitude for myself as a couple of wonderful warm days. More importantly, some great family time this last weekend. My 16-year-old daughter will turn 17 this upcoming weekend. So we are preparing for that with a big party and cake and all that kind of fun stuff. She's also looking at what she wants for the whole Memorial Day weekend because we tend to celebrate birthday weekends. Mine is a day, but for my girls and the family, it's a weekend. I don't know how that works. Sometimes it's a week, but it is what it is. I'm grateful for it all. With that, how about Ken? How about yourself?
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Good to be on the Zoom call with all of you today. I'm grateful for, actually, today is my son's birthday, my second oldest son's birthday. His name is Parker. He turns double digits today. He is officially 10 today. And I'm very proud of that young man. He's turned into a great boy. He does a lot of effort into his learning and experiences with the family, friends, into his sports. He shows a lot of effort and passion for a lot of aspects of life. So I'm proud of him. And maybe one day he'll listen to something like this. And if you are, Parker, I'm proud of you and happy birthday.
Awesome. Maybe someday he'll listen to his parents, right, Ken?
That'll be the day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the prayer we have out there as well. Awesome. Thank you. How about Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Always a lot to be grateful for today. Just extremely grateful for continued connections, and I've had the opportunity to really connect with a lot of amazing people, being in service of others. And last Saturday, got to volunteer at a cheer station for Girls on the Run, which is fun. So got some battle wounds from that. Got blisters all over my finger from ringing a bell as hard as I could for about 2 hours. But it was a beautiful day. We did it in November of last year, and it was 0 degrees with the wind chill. So the girls, even with the heat at 70 degrees, were struggling a little bit, but they were much happier than they were in November. I can tell you that. So just extremely grateful for being in service of others as much as possible.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. How about Mike Min?
Thanks, Chris. Grateful for my dogs, Salem and Akira. You know, they're always excited to see you when you get home. And truly their curiosity to the world around them is more than enough to make you smile. So their existence alone is something to be grateful for.
Well, that's also outstanding. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that as well. How about, let's go to Ashley.
Thank you, Chris. I am just grateful for the book that you're actually are making our team as well as our book club participate in. It's brought lots of different conversations to my friend groups and our home life, and I'm just applying the tools. So I hope that more people will join also as the future sessions come about.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. How about, let's go to Michael Birchbach.
Thanks, Chris. I am grateful for my mother. We had a belated Mother's Day celebration over the weekend. All the sacrifices she had made for not only me, but the entire family. And wrap it up with the famous quote by her. When we disagree, she said, "You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. So we might as well get along."
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you very much. So as we get into our program today, you know, I always like to start with something funny. But what's interesting is that we're doing a lot of work at both our house and also at Gentian here and at the farm. And the other day, Ashley and I got into a little bit of an argument, and she hit me with a meter stick, like a yardstick. And I said, "Man, you really straightened me out." That's pretty funny because Ashley would never hit anyone that way. So I think it's even funnier. But as we go along, I always like to start with something funny. What's serious here? It's really good to see our politicians put aside their differences and work out the debt ceiling, right? Oh, wait, that's me living in a fairy world. I just wanted to say, as you look at this, you're seeing some of the biases that people have and some of the political division we see, and more just the conversational division people have of even coming to something because they believe the other party is going to benefit from it when America is held in the balance. So I would say this is, to some, they would say this is an indictment of our political systems, and more important, our politicians, to say you're now holding the American economy, the American people hostage in your battle of your own wills back and forth. They need to get something done. First of all, I want to bring up one concept that those of you from the 80s and 90s may have heard before, but it's been eliminated from the English language, and that is called government cutbacks. You've heard that before, right? Remember the 80s, government cutbacks? It doesn't exist anymore. So apparently when a program is started, it's just started for perpetuity. So that's one of the things I think we'll see is we've had a lot of conversation around the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I've renamed How to Be a Good Human to Others and Work Well with Others. I think it's really interesting to see a lot of that division and divisiveness, even in the conversations you'll see every day. Most importantly is just awareness. And I think being aware of what the politicians, maybe their self-awareness of the fact that they're representing you and I a little bit more than representing themselves and they're being reelected might be a little bit of help. But that's just a few of my opinions on the bigger picture as well. We're still looking at things, what is going on in the economy as well. We don't want those biases to really prevent us from continuing with the long-term plan. But I know we have a short-term bias, which is often narrow framing, looking at things in a very, very, very small time frame. If we look at just this, and that's why the market often fluctuates when you hear, oh, they didn't come up with a debt ceiling, resolution. Oh, then that's narrow framing. I'm not going to stick true to my long plan because something's going to happen with that. Well, if you've ever studied history in America and economic history, you'll find that Americans will do the right thing after they've exhausted all other resources. So we're in that process right now. With that, why don't I pass it over? And today we're going to have a segment for Ashley. Ashley's going to do, I still don't have a name for it. I'm going to call it Ashley's Savings Program, Ashley's Tips. We'll see. I haven't had anything that's really settled in yet, but we're going to start with Ashley's Tips today. How about that?
Thank you, Chris. And I know we've all heard these things that I'm going to bring up before. You probably even heard them from your parents way back when you were growing up. But a few energy tips that I just wanted to bring to your attention as a friendly reminder is unplug those devices that you're not using. Obviously, it will save on your electricity bill. It will also save the batteries on the devices themselves. Turn those lights off. I mean, I tell my children, I remember my mother telling me to turn the lights off when we're not using them. Just another way to save some money on that energy bill. Washing laundry in cold water versus warm water or hot water when you don't need it is also just a reminder and an idea for you to use at home. Clean that fan as well as those air filters for your air conditioning. It's air conditioning season, so remember to change that filter, and hopefully cleaner air leads to more efficiency in your air conditioners as well as your furnace whenever you need it at night. Recycling old devices or even sell them. So obviously we all upgrade our phones, right? From time to time, we get new AirPods, give them away, even put them on buy, sell, trade. People are willing to give you some money to upgrade their devices, and then you benefit from it also. And then opening those windows at nighttime. And when it's cool, especially if you're here in Wisconsin this evening, a great idea, turn off that air, open some windows, get some fresh air. And again, saving on that energy bill doesn't hurt. And that's all I got for us today.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Thank you for our money-saving tips, and we'll take those to heart, and I'll open the windows this evening. Although allergies, they say, keep your windows closed. I'm like, boy, I'm so convexed on that as well. But thank you for the tips. That's awesome. Super helpful and way to help us tremendously. What I'd like to do as well as we go through here today is talk a couple of things about, just touch on a couple of subjects, if you will. And I'm going to talk about maybe two ways to life. We talked a little bit about decision-making last time, big D's and little D's. That's big decisions and little decisions, and not confusing the two. We'll talk more at the end of the program today about that. But I think what we're beginning to see here is confusion of decisions, because every small decision seems like a big one in many cases, and we're not sure where to start. So I'll touch base on a little bit of that as well and a couple other ideas. But before I do that, why don't we go to Mike's Minute? Mike, what's been going on with some of the research and different ideas that you have for us today?
Thanks, Chris. So this last weekend, I indulged myself in about a 6-hour asset allocation course that Raymond James offered. So essentially putting a whole lot of very technical names to what we've been doing all along when it comes to diversification. And if anybody ever wants to hear a little bit more about that, I'd happily put you to sleep if you want to give me a call. So, but But so regardless of that fact, going back through and really just taking a look at our holdings on a regular basis, continuing to do that, finding different ways to monitor and continuing to innovate on our end, and looking at how diversification has actually really helped so much over the course of time is just incredibly interesting. You know, a lot of you have lived through this. A lot of you have seen it. You can speak to it at this point. And I think it's really fascinating though, when you actually put the numbers to it and see how the lost decade truly wasn't actually lost on somebody who had a diversified portfolio. So those are some of the things that we're taking a look at. It's just a reaffirmation of what we do and how to approach what's going to happen going forward. And that's always going to be sticking to the plan. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Mike. Mike's been also doing a lot of perspective along with Ryan and Michael Birchbach as well about our long-term returns and how they've fared. They've done fairly well, but I just wanted to say I've been doing a ton of research on that as well. That's a lot of the behind the scenes things. That's the oil change and things that you maybe don't see, but they're really, really extremely helpful. And when we're looking for vehicles to fund the plans that we have, it's great to have confidence and see how they've done over time. But one interesting fact about Mike is that, I don't know if you know this about him, but he travels quite a bit and he likes to talk with people about his pet penguin. He said, I said, Mike, why do you want to talk about that? He said, because it's a great icebreaker. At any rate, as we move on here today, I wanted to go to another section that we have called Zach's Facts. Zach, why don't you bring us up to what you have today? Give us some facts that amaze us with. And just, I want to give you one amazing fact here. Have you guys ever met somebody so mentally out of it that they're going to run 100 miles at once? I'm joking on that. This gentleman up here, Zach, is going to run 100 miles for charity. You'll see more coming out about it. But incredible dedication. I just wanted to give a great, shout out to him because he does a ton in the giving. So if we do it, plan it, live it, give it, Zach represents the give it quite a bit for us as well. So Zach, how about Zach's facts?
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And don't know if I have facts to wow somebody, but just a few different updates on the markets this year. And then kind of like Chris and Mike mentioned, just some affirmations of the timeless pieces that we look at as well. So if we're looking at the Dow Jones, temporarily down 0.2% on the year, and a lot of people get caught up on that and caught up on the Dow Jones because the news and the media loves to share that number because it's the biggest number. So when it goes down, oh, it's down 300 points. It's only down 1%, right? It's also price weighted, so it's not necessarily the best measure to use when looking at the market. We like to use the S&P, which is actually up almost 8% on the year, and it's still 15% off of its previous highs. So a tremendous start to the year. Nothing fundamentally changing, which is one of the affirmations that we'll look at in a second. The NASDAQ, which is 50% technology, is actually up 20% on the year. That's where we saw the biggest temporary correction last year. International about 5.6% up on the year, and emerging markets about 1.6. Emerging markets had a really good fourth quarter last year and just a little bit slower start here to start this one. But really the affirmation of a few timeless principles is, like Chris mentioned, the economy cannot be forecasted or timed. Has anything truly changed with some of these companies to start the year? Anything truly change economy or the conversation about recession or debt ceiling? Yet we're up 8% on the year, and some asset classes up 20 or 30%. Really just having the overall financial plan drive our investment decisions, not the other way around. And our favorite that Mike and I talk about the most on is just the unbelievable impact of rebalancing. Last year, if we did a rebalance at any time, more than likely we bought our large cap growth category. That's our, large size companies, especially technology type companies. Those are down temporarily 25, maybe even 40% last year, up 20 or 30% in some cases this year. Some individual of those holdings are actually up almost over 100%, some of those individual companies. So rebalancing, we bought more of that last year. In the previous years, we sold off of that because that was the best performing asset class. So the impact of rebalancing is just incredible. And also just to be aware of a few products that are coming out there now. There's going to be a lot of conversation, if you haven't heard them already, of here you can protect your downside, or here you're gonna get a guaranteed 10% return and a downside of 1%, right, for a temporary period of time. Just be aware of those insurance or different products you hear from various banks or newspapers. One real quick thing that I just wanted to share with you guys as well is just if you're curious on different strategies for some cash that you have on the sidelines, we've seen that banks aren't necessarily giving a very high rate yet, still around 1%. if you're curious on that, we've heard a few different things of call your bank, and kind of the idea of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Just talk about the different ideas that we have here yielding around 4.5, 4.8%, potentially even 5% in some cases. Either talk to us about those or call your bank and see if they can do anything with that as well. With that, Chris, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Zach. That's awesome. So right now the sales cycle is on, just like when gold is starting to do well, when these annuities Zach is talking about, our equity index annuities. Oh, and you'll never lose money, but you'll always make money. It's an interesting time to start to see the sales cycle start to continue. You really want to read the fine print, look at it, and then really just learn to say no. But what's interesting about those as well is Zach came to me and he likes to look up definitions. And the other day he just told me, hey, Chris, there's a fine line between hyphenated words. So at any rate, as we move on to Ken's corner, I want to bring up some ideas here, Ken. But more importantly, what do we have going on in the planning side of the equation, or what should we be looking at?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate that. And you're right about this, the sales. I've had a few meetings now where those products that Zach and you were mentioning actually came up, and it's a product pitch versus stewardship. We're very much on the stewardship side of the equation, making sure that just getting good advice and being good stewards of your hard-earned money is really the key to all this and making good decisions. Very, very rarely does a product solve the problem, long term. Maybe short term, but not long term. So I want to bring that up because I'm having some experience with that firsthand with clients as well. So one topic that we're hearing about right now is family wealth planning. I know we've talked about it a few times. I really want to bring it to light a little bit more. With the idea of family wealth planning, it's a tender topic amongst families. It's sometimes it's a hard one to talk about because some generations, hey, we can't let mom and dad, we can't tell the kids what mom and dad have saved up. That we can't do that, right? and I totally get that. Every family has their dynamic. Also asking the kids what they're making. That's also a tender topic sometimes, and some families share it, some don't, and there's not the way, there's maybe a way to do this. But when we find out family wealth planning, we talk about tax bracket management. I'll call it that. Family wealth management, is tax bracket management, and it's something technical we can help you solve. It takes some conversations, it takes some thoughts. Because a lot of times what we're hearing right now from some of you is, hey, I wish we had more Roth. Like, early on in our careers, we were deferring everything. We were putting everything in pre-tax 401ks because it was a thing that came out early on. And then the Roths came out back in 1997. And so when you look at the different types of buckets we can have and the structure that we can have with our money, it's really an interesting dynamic of how do we keep money in the family. And it comes down to that conversation about, hey, where's mom and dad today versus where the beneficiary is going to be tomorrow. And so if we can find that balancing act there and figure out, what would it look like from a tax bracket management today versus tomorrow, I think that we can make some really good decisions together. So again, this isn't for everybody. It's some of the conversations I'm having right now with some families. And if it's on your mind, and if you feel like you would like to chat about that with us, we certainly would welcome that conversation from you guys.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. It's one of those things that we look at as well, that family wealth distribution planning is a huge part of the equation. You've seen it in different terms before. We've really never coined it, if you will, in the past. So now looking at it, it's something that we want to make sure is there with you, because we'd rather have you have the money, or who you want to, than the government. And some of it's just planning. We need to look out 20 and 30 years. And people are always surprised when we look out to required minimum distribution ages and say, hey, listen, if we hold this in this pre-tax manner, when you're 85 years old, your distribution is 7%. And in that case, you're going to have a massive distribution and never be in the tax brackets you are now. And that's when people start to realize, oh, this is actually a long-term journey that we want to do for family wealth distribution planning. So, and using other brackets as well. Ken, thank you. It's a great topic. There's a lot that goes on with that as well. So if you have any questions, bring them to us next time. And if they're really hard, ask the guys. If they're really easy, ask me. So as we move forward as well, let me touch base on a couple of things. Well, this is interesting. Ken and I were having a conversation the other day too. And I bought everybody these dictionaries, and he came up to me and said, Chris, you want to know what's always spelled wrong in the dictionary? I said, man, what is it? He goes, the word wrong. Anyway. So as you go through it, it's quite funny. W-R-O-N-G spelled wrong in the dictionary. I love it. Thanks, Ken. Those are quite funny when you do those to me. But as we go through, I've been looking at an awful lot of information on decision-making biases, the things that are happening, how we communicate. The book that we're talking about, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you've heard about it before, you've read about it before. I guarantee with new eyes and fresh eyes in today's words, it will bring new meanings. I've got rapt attention on this. I've been looking at how to help people in the best possible way, because really we want to get better for you and how we can communicate better. More importantly, we realize the biggest gift that we can often do with you is listen. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces we're seeing with you is, and one of the most important things is to ask proper questions and then just listen. When we have meetings with you, we really want to know what you're interested in. What do you want? We may have a few things we need to cover just on the maintenance, but more importantly, we could go through 50 or 100 things you're very much not interested in. And when I was younger, many of you, I want to thank you for your time when you did listen to me going through everything I wanted to go through to try to sound smart. And you'd get to the end of it and go, great. Now, what I really want to know is, what should I do with my IRA or 401k? So thank you for your patience in that. We've learned to ask you the questions of what are important to you and then tell you the things that you probably should be aware of, but maybe weren't paying as much attention. So we go on here. I want to talk about one thing as well. I think there was a great statement recently about there's two ways to live life. And I think this was maybe Albert Einstein who had said it. There's one, which is nothing is a miracle. And the second, where everything is a miracle. So you have a choice. Shakespeare also said it this way: nothing itself is good or bad. You think and it makes it so. So you look at these kind of ideas. If that's true, if those are really true, we have a choice as we enter times like these. Times like these, we learn to live again. I think it's a great line by Dave Grohl in one of his songs. We learn to see what's important in this. Is the debt something going to be the most important, onerous thing to affect you? It may affect you in some ways, but don't let it affect you on your day-to-day and your plan. Perspective on these is very, very, very important. We got a news media that's trying to gather our attention, and it's getting harder and harder and harder to do. So they have to put more sensational items out there to do it. Be aware of that. Make sure you're paying attention to it. I read the catastrophist media, as we go through. AI stocks are poised to take over the world, or AI is going to take over the world. Kohl's shares spike as a retailer has a surprise profit. The Dow falls as debt ceiling, stretches into a second day. Russia says it'll be react extremely harshly to further border attacks. I mean, these are all the things you're getting in headlines, right? Push them away. Push them away. Those are interesting. The most important things to you, what you should put the center of yourself is going to be family, things that are important to you. Eliminate those distractions on a daily basis. And I see many of you on the call have done that. So I want to congratulate you on those who have. One thing I want to say, and this is kind of a bit odd, but I want you to live an awful life. Not the way you're thinking, not AW-ful, but AWE space FULL, a life full of awe. Remember when you're a kid, or look at your grandchildren and they walk outside right now and they see, dandelions, they see bees. It's like, oh my gosh, everything is absolutely amazing. Do you remember when you were like that? Possibly not. It is amazing. Go out, listen to the cacophony of the birds. It's a symphony. It's amazing. It brings you and helps your parasympathetic nervous system actually relax, actually forget the stuff that's going on today, just like gratitude does as well. So there's a lot of practices here we can offer you on the live it side of the equation. So the planet, we've been talking about. Living it, we always want to give you ideas on it. Giving it, there's many different ideas on the qualified charitable distributions and others as well. But that's just a little piece I wanted to share with you today. Live an awful life, a life full of awe. And if you really want to surprise somebody, call them up and tell them, hey, I really want to wish you an awful life. You'll see what the reaction is. It's kind of funny. Anyway, with what's important happening today, I'd like to pass it over to Michael Birschbach. Michael is a new member of our team here for the past several weeks. He comes to us from, the wonderful, wonderful asset manager, clearinghouse and asset manager Schwab. And he brings this incredible insight, which is outstanding, 5 or 6 years in the business, which is great in many different forms. But today he's going to tell us what should we be watching for, Gentian.
Thank you, Chris. So today we have our May birthday club lunch at the Gentian office. Next week, Monday, May 29th is Memorial Day. And in observance of that, our office and the markets will be closed. Next week, Tuesday, we'll have part 3 of our book club that Chris mentioned on how to win friends and influence people, followed by part 4 on Wednesday, June 7th, and part 5 on Tuesday, June 13th. Next Wednesday, May 31st, in the afternoon, we'll have a limited availability as we'll focus as a team on learning to serve you better. And just a few more, 2 weeks from today will be our next bi-weekly update. And Wednesday, June 14th will be our next birthday club lunch. As always, you can register on our website, reaching out to us directly. And there's also a link for each of those events in the email that we recently sent out.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, appreciate that. And welcome again to the team. So I'm going to end today with something to almost to be careful of. Be careful of the biases that you have, recency bias or confirmation bias, the things that you have in your mind that you believe are right as you're going forward. Let me give you one example. Have you seen lately that astrophysicists, now that they've been able to look further into the universe, they're going to have to go back and actually review and relook at how they believe the universe was formed and what it does. So we've operated with certainty because we're getting smarter and smarter. And we're actually getting smart enough now to realize that we were wrong for a lot of things. Who knows, maybe eventually we'll find out that the earth is flat. I'm joking with that, by the way. So as we go through though, I think the biggest gift, give people a gift today if you can here. And I'd say the biggest gift is listening intently. Have you ever had anybody listen to you really intently with rapt attention? Now there's two ways to do that. One that freaks people out where you're like this and you're really intense and you got your eyes there and you're like hanging on their every word. But I'd call it maybe active patient listening. Sigmund Freud was actually one they said had an incredible ability. He was there consistently with a gaze and would occasionally ask questions, change, but you just felt that his presence was there and it was a massive gift to be listened to in that form. So I would say when you get a chance today, ask somebody a question and ask further interested questions about them. We are definitely 100% interested in what happens to us. And this is a last thing I'll leave you with as well. I was recently given this idea by one of my good friends, Avi, but his grandmother had told him, remember, the next person that you approach, you were 20th on their list of things to do today. So when you do that with courtesy and you know they're interrupting them from their other 19, make sure maybe you take a chance to listen to them rather than what you need to get accomplished as well. I'd like to say one more thing too. I'm a big fan of music. This summer, the music and concerts are all coming around. And for myself, I really want to hear 99 Men sing the word Africa by Toto, because it's something that 100 men or more could never do. At any rate, that's one of those things that we like as we go across. There's a couple I could give to your grandkids to see as well. But with that, here at Gentian, we're Planet Live It Give It. We take it very serious. We expand the team to service you on a consistent basis. You'll see more about that coming up. To those who are coming to the lunch club today for your birthday celebration, thank you so much. But all of you on the call today, thank you for your time. Thank you for letting us help guide you, listen to you, and do things to help steward your retirement and really hopefully make it the best it could be. We think you deserve it. We think you deserve our time going out to study, Mike doing 6 hours of asset allocation on a Sunday, Ken spending his weekend in Washington, D.C., looking at Ed Slott's, massive papers that you get to plow through. Zach, every single person here is looking to better themselves, in the case here, to serve you better. So I want to make sure that from all of us here on your planet, Live It, Give It, we tend to continue to help you, always getting better in some form. Today, from the world headquarters of Gentian here in Mequon, Wisconsin, I want to thank you tremendously for your faith, patience, and discipline, and your trust in us. Have a great rest of your week.